The average woman owns 35 pairs of shoes. My wife alone, and I'm going to use her, and she's going to kill me later, but that's okay. Basically, my wife has about 60 pairs of shoes.
Wow.
We go out to holidays and everything. I buy one pair because I really need to. She buys 5, and half of those pairs I've never seen again because they only go with one outfit.
Right.
So you see, fashion will cripple your feet if you're not careful. Remember, when you buy shoes, like we're saying, buy them in the afternoon. Make sure that you stand, okay, before you, and you walk around the store. You know, they say this, you break in the shoe. No, it'll break your feet first before you break it in. And then if you're a diabetic or you're an elderly patient who has thin skin, what will happen is you can end up with an ulcer or a wound or hard skin that becomes damaged, and then it causes real problems for your feet. So remember, always walk around the shop for about 5 minutes and make sure it fits like a glove. And if it fits like a glove and it's really comfortable, that is the shoe that you should buy.
Right. And so you came with a whole display of shoes or pairs of shoes today. And I'm just wondering, why exactly did you bring these different pairs of shoes?
Because I wanted to show you the difference between good footwear and poor footwear. Now, I'm not going to pick on you, but your footwear is reasonable at the front.
Yes.
But if you look at it, the heel is too high.
At the back.
At the back. A heel, why do women wear a lot of high heels? Because it defines the calf and it exacerbates the look of the calf and it also makes them taller. So for women who are short, they tend to wear heeled shoes so that they look taller, so like they can come up to everyone else. But the problem with doing that is if you are someone who's worn high heels all your life, you shorten your Achilles tendon, which is this major tendon at the back of the leg. And what ends up happening is it becomes very tight. So when you start doing activity and everything, you're likely to damage that tendon. And this is why people who, you suddenly go to your doctor at the age of about 50, and your doctor says, you're totally unfit, you need to start training. So they start running. And then what happens is the tendon gets irritated and it develops a tendonitis. So remember, footwear, we are designed to walk forward as human beings. are going to get the same. Like, for example, you know, in my family we have a lot of hyperplay in our joints. So unfortunately my son has got a lot of hyperplay now, so he sort of, when he runs, he looks like a giraffe on ice skates. Okay, so again, the thing is, what you've got to do is you've got to make sure, so if you do have a problem with flat feet and you're getting back pain or knee pain, then make sure you go to someone. You can go to an orthopedist or a physiotherapist who understands biomechanics, and you get some form of device where they just put something in your shoes, which is very simple, where it can be customized or bought off the shelf, and you can wear that to support the foot. And that helps to allow your biomechanics to stabilize, so that you're not likely to get knee pain and back pain. Because what people tend to do is when they get into their 60s and they become older cars, what happens is then, and a lot of the orthopods will say, oh, you've got classic arthritis. Yes, you do, but as a direct result because of poor biomechanics and walking badly for a long time. And relating to footwear, what I always tell people is, and what we used to tell people in the UK, and we're also telling people here now, is you come from Southsea, your office is, I don't know, say Muthaiga, for example, or Karen. You are going all that distance in a pair of shoes like yours.
Yeah.
By the time you get to work, you are in so much pain that you can hardly walk.
Right.
And you're grumpy the whole day because your feet hurt. And I've always said, if your feet hurt, then everyone else around you doesn't get a chance.
That's true. So how do we make sure that we have good foot balance when it comes to having, you know, buying pairs of shoes? Do you recommend we buy shoes at a specific time in the afternoon?
I would, yes, Joy, I'd say always buy your shoes in the afternoon because your feet naturally swell. When you find a shoe, right, if you're looking at a shoe like this, for example, now, that is not a good shoe. Why? Because you have to grip with your toes. So your foot isn't doing what it naturally needs to do because you're gripping so hard to hold the shoe in place. Then there's no structural support. So if you are someone with a weak foot or someone with thin skin, if a thorn goes in there or you're working in the chamber and you're wearing something like that and something pricks you and you're diabetic, you're going to end up with a severe wound or an infection. Okay? And also, if you can do this with a shoe, it's not good.
Right.
Because it collapses. You see, we don't bend here. We bend at our toe joint, so we bend there, right? So if your shoe does that, then it's not good for you. Okay? So again, what you need to do is when you find a shoe should basically bend in the middle,
right,
at the front, there. So that bit,
the toe area.
yeah, that mid part of the foot or the shoe should basically stay stable.
So what about the heels that we wear that don't even bend at all?
Yeah, now that's like the clogs, and the problem with that is if you put your foot in, if you try to walk on very hard concrete, it hurts, right? So if you put your foot into a shoe that is like concrete, there's no give in the shoe. So imagine if you hold that and then you try to bend it, it doesn't move. So what happens in turn is if you've got a shoe that's too rigid and too hard and it doesn't give, then the mechanics of the foot start to change. So instead of walking straight, heel to toe, you start to stick the foot out in that position. Or you bring it in. Or you walk on your heel. And you don't walk properly. And over time, thousands of steps, if you imagine you're taking 8,000 to 10,000 steps a day, and if you're doing that continuously in the wrong way, what would eventually happen? You would end up with serious complications with your knees, your back, and your feet would hurt, and your ankles.
So you said there were 26 bones in everybody's feet.
Yeah.
Do the bones wear out, you know, due to wearing heels? And,
yeah, and I think, you know, if you're someone who, like in the 40s and 50s, the thing was what they call winkle pickers. Now, winkle pickers are shoes that had very pointed. So a lot of people used to shove their feet into shoes that size. Now, if you took your shoe off and you stood on the floor and you drew around your foot would, the outline of your foot would be here, not here. So what people tend to do is they stick their feet and they cram their feet in because they look nice. And they do this, and then they go out to a club and they dance for 5-6 hours.
Right.
And then they wonder why their small toes are so painful and inflamed that they can't walk for the next 3 days. And you know, I can see you smiling and laughing because maybe you're one of these people, but generally...
not for 6 hours, really. I think I would just fall down.
And if you notice, that is very rigid, so that has no give, so there's no play in that at all.
Yeah.
So that's like wearing a concrete thing, and then you shove your foot into something like this. And then people complain, oh, my feet are killing me. The other day, I mean, I had a lady in my office, and she came in, and she she wore shoes even worse than that, and a heel like this, and the skin was swelling out of the shoe, and then she stood in front of me and said, "What is my problem?" And I said to her, "Listen, let me show you something." And I drew, and what you can do is you take off your shoe, you draw around your foot, and then basically you can see that you're shoving your foot into something that's completely ridiculous. Now this is a shoe that's reasonably good. Now this is not bad. You see the heel here? Okay, it's a bit open, but generally that's not a bad shoe. You see the toe box is wide, and also remember you need to put your middle finger against the toe box. And if your toes are jamming up into here, then it's the wrong size. Because remember, if a shoe's too small, and no one foot is the same size, so get it the size of the large foot. So what you do is you put your finger up against the toe box, and if your toe is beyond that, then it's a good shoe. But remember also, if the shoe is too big as well, what will happen is the foot will shear and move, which means you'll be left with blisters. And this is why when people buy shoes and they don't break them in properly and they don't wear them for a little bit and then they suddenly go and run a marathon, they end up with the most horrific blisters. And I love it when people go to shoe stores and the shoe store says, and you say, "Oh, I want that trainer that we wore, that I had before," and they say, "Oh no, we've discontinued that one. We now have a much better one. It's like this." It's not much better for you. That shoe fitted you, so if something really works for you, stick with that type of shoe. So you see, that is a good heel. That is a very good heel, and that shows thing. And then you can see the angle is not too steep, and when I bend it, you see it holds, but it does rotate. Because again, if you can rotate a shoe like a piece of sponge.
Oh, okay. These are the ballerinas?
Yeah, so the ballet shoes, the ballerina type shoes, that is not good.
Really?
Yeah.
Why?
Because remember what's happening is there's no, so imagine you're flat-footed, Joy, and there's no structural support.
I don't know,
so when
actually, am I flat-footed?
No, you can, why don't you stand here for me and I'll tell you straight away whether you're flat-footed.
With my heels on or without them?
No, without them. Take your shoes off for me.
I'll just...
Now, do you mind if I use your shoe?
Yeah, well, I don't mind.
Okay.
There you go.
Right, so let's talk about the host shoe. If we look at that, that's about 3.5 inches. Now the problem with that is she may find that, but there's absolutely, it's about 4 inches rather, if we'd measure, if we'd be precise. But also, if you notice, Joy, what's happening is there's no movement through the mid part of the foot. So your foot, if you wore that all day, it would be sore afterwards, because what you're doing, you know, if I'd like everyone to do an exercise, go up onto your toes and walk around for about 3 hours. Or no, sorry, about 3 minutes. Walk around on your toes for about 3 minutes and see how uncomfortable that is. And that's what people are doing with high heels all the time. So again, your footwear has to, remember one thing, always invest in good shoes and a good mattress. Why? Because you spend half your life in bed and half your life on your feet. So make sure you always invest in a good shoe. And so just stand, could you take off both shoes for me so I can... Now I know also, Joy, why you wear a lot of high heels, because you're short, so you tend to want to, and that's why a lot of women wear high heels. There you go. Stand straight for me like that.
It's a fashion thing.
Can you stand, just spread your feet a little bit for me? Now I want you to bend your knees a little bit. Just bend them a bit. Yeah. Now, basically, do you ever get pain in your left knee?
Left knee.
Any pain in your left knee?
Nothing. No, but I do get the pain in my...
In the toe?
Yes, in my toes.
In the big toe?
Yes.
Now what's interestingly enough is you slightly pronate, so you turn, you have an arch, because go up on your toes, if you raise up on your toes, you see there's an arch there. So you do have an arch, although your foot is slightly low, so you have a low instep. So basically, the thing with you is, this is why you suit shoes like this, because they exacerbate the